So today I'm going to do another eyeshadow palette tag. I just love these. I love these. I've had this on the list to do for a few weeks now. So I already shopped it, and the Way. These are two different channels that I have seen do this palette tag. They did a little bit of a collab a few weeks ago. I will have their channels linked in my description. But basically, I thought this was a lot of fun because these were questions that I hadn't seen before. So I just thought, well, I gotta do this eyeshadow tag as well. I gotta like tag myself along. So there are 8 different prompts, and I tag anyone who watches this and wants to do it because I thought it was a lot of fun. And actually I found this one pretty difficult, to be fair. I don't know if I picked the right palette, but it's just what I'm thinking today. So maybe we can do this another time in like a year's time, and I'm sure my preferences would have changed. But okay, so the first one is if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents me in terms of color story wise. It's not necessarily the colors that I always wear, but when I think about me as a person in like myself, like my inner self, you know, because it's not really about like what I like to wear, because I do wear a lot of like black t-shirts, black long sleeves, like I do wear a lot of black clothing, right? So I'm not super colorful in that respect. Or I wear a lot of grays and stuff, but I just think muted colors work really well for me. Regardless of that, in terms of like a color story, I love my pinks, I love my blushes of color, my nice little peachy colors as well, and just like more girly stuff. So I actually am gonna pick this one. This is from Glam Shop. This is one of they released some 70s bundle collection a few years ago, and I picked up the bundle. This is one of the palettes that was in the bundle. And this is just, for me personally, I think in terms of a color story, this is really, really beautiful and very girly. And when I think of myself, I mean, I am wearing like girly eyeshadow right now. But when I think of myself, yes, I like wearing like my cool tone browns a lot at the moment, and I'm really into like neutrals and stuff. But my inner core, my soul, is colorful, like it is, and it's quite girly. So I think this is a perfect palette to represent me as myself, like my inner self, which may come as a surprise, may not, I don't really know, but I just love girly stuff. I like girly pinky stuff. So anyway, these also are stunning in this palette. So like, why wouldn't I pick a palette that is absolutely stunning as well? It's just beautiful. You also have 2 rows of shimmers and only 1 row of matte, which is just perfect to me. It's pretty light. It does lack depth. I do like to have a darker shade to deepen out my outer corner. So that's the only kind of negative thing about this palette. But I think as a color story overall, I think it does represent me. Now, does it represent everything I wear and all the shades that I usually wear? No, but that's how I interpreted the question. I know, maybe I'm going a little too deep with these questions, but that's how I saw it. Okay, and then if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents me in terms of the packaging, in the spring, summertime, this is my go-to color, peach. This was a no-brainer for me. I picked the Gourmand Girls Peach Perfect palette. I wear peach all the time at the beach. I have beach cover-ups that are peach. I have so many different tank tops that are peach. Do I necessarily suit this color? Who knows? I don't care. It's just the color that I always gravitate towards. And I think in terms of a packaging, it just like, it represents me. Like if you know me and my family, I wear peach. I have a bright peach, you know, swimwear summer dress. I don't even see it as a dress, it's just a cover up. My brother, when he came to visit me a few years ago, he's like, oh, I like your dress. I was thinking, oh yeah, this is kind of a dress, but it really isn't. And I've worn it in actually several videos. You might have seen it. It's nothing special. It probably cost me £5, whatever, but it is what it is. I think this represents me. Is it my favorite packaging in all of my collection? No, I think there's so many other palettes that have better packaging than this. But if I have to think about what it represents me, the most beautiful packaging is not going to represent me. This is representing me, you know? So anyway, it's not that I love peaches either. Peaches are just a fruit. They're not my favorite fruit. It has nothing to do with the peaches. Just the color. Okay, if I would pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents spring, So this one, I think I have to go with this one. There's a few other ones that I potentially could, just so I don't have to talk about this brand. But I think the Flower Moon from Ensley Rain, I think this is still just such a gorgeous spring palette, and I can't help it. It's in my collection, so I'm gonna bring it up. I feel bad because I'm really not going into this that much, and it did cost me quite a bit, but I'm just, in the back of my head, I'm like, don't use that palette, don't use that palette. But I actually want to. There's so many shades in here I still have yet to use. I still want to do like a no pen left behind, but I don't really want to feature it on my channel, so it's such a shame. But in terms of just the colors, for me, this represents spring, because when you think of spring, you think of like the flowers blooming and everything, but really that's like the end of spring, at least where I live currently. So spring to me is very dark and rainy and the grass is growing. So I like how this is actually kind of muted and not super bright, but then you have a couple of pop bright colors because spring is beautiful. And you have all of the purples and the pinks and the greens. I just think it's very, very spring. So there are a few, like I said, other palettes, but I just thought, you know, let me grab that one. I think it's the one that represents spring the most to me when spring is really in that rainy season. Okay, if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents happy. The men outside are making noise. I'm sorry if you can hear that. So I'm gonna pick this one. This is from Cosmic Beauty Delicious Delights. I love this one. Whenever I use it, it makes me happy. It's such a bright, colorful, lovely. I would say this is more of a summer palette. That's why I didn't pick it for spring, but you can absolutely use this for spring. Like I use this all year round. It doesn't matter to me. But I think it's more of a like end of spring, beginning of summer palette. However, you use what you want to use because there are pastels in here. But the prompt obviously is what makes you happy. This palette makes me happy every time I go into it. I just think it's so much fun. And I don't know, I had to pick like a bright, colorful one to make me happy. So yeah, I don't know. I could have used maybe an old palette that makes me happy because of memories and things like that. But I thought, well, let's just go with a color story and a brand that I really enjoy and I like promoting and I like talking about. So we went with Delicious Delights on this one. Okay, number 5 is if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents the dark grungy in me. I don't have that many dark grungy eyeshadow palettes, to be fair, because you know, I have my, obviously, like I'm super grumpy. Like I'm a grumpy dark person. I really am. I probably am more negative than I am positive in my real life. But I think also, again, in my inner soul, I am a happy person. Like I have a brightness to me, but it's like all of the outside elements make me grumpy and whatever. But when I look at the eyeshadow palettes I have, there are like grungy tones and grungy shades, but there's not like an actual eyeshadow palette, at least that I can think of, that I really look at it and like, that's like a real dark grungy one, because I do tend to stay away from dark shadows. Obviously there's dark shadows in every palette, but when it's a palette with just dark or like really mid-tone to dark shades, I tend to avoid those. But I think this one is a more recent one. I actually just spoke about this one recently. It's from Glam Shop again. And I think this is kind of grungy. I don't think you could do a look that is not grungy with this palette, just because of the color story. And the shades in here are really, really beautiful. And I just think if I'm going to think about the dark grunginess inside of me, let's go with this one. I don't want to go like full black or grays or anything. Let's go greens. I'm a Virgo. Green is very Virgo-esque, as it were, because we're very much part of the earth, I believe. I think that's, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to go with this one, which I can't say the name of it. I don't know if you can still get this on the Glam Shop website. I don't think so, because I got it when it was on sale, but you never know. But yeah, this one I think would represent the dark grungy side of me, while I'm not a very dark grungy person. I mean, I am, but not when it comes to makeup, I guess. Okay, number 6 is if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents the girly in me. So obviously the first palette that I picked, which was the Glam Shop, is very girly, like quote unquote, 'cause it's like pinks and very light and airy. So I thought, well, I don't want to pick the same palette again. And actually I was going to pick this palette to represent me, but I think the Glam Shop one represents me a little bit better, because just like in terms of like the layout and the shimmers are definitely what I go for more now. But I think in terms of like the girly side, I gotta go with my Huda Beauty. Come on, we gotta go with a part of me and maybe other people as we wanted this palette, because it's I mean, I think it's a pretty palette. Like just looking at it, I think it's pretty. So I just think it's so girly and pretty. And then you look inside and it's like, ah, oh, that's so pretty. That's so, like, how can you, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who look at this palette and be like, that's not pretty. I don't like that. For me personally, for my taste, I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. That's so pretty. That's so girly too. I find this very girly. Obviously you can go a little more blue and purple, but there's a lot of neutrals in here. But I think overall, I think it's just quite a girly palette, and the girliness that I have inside of me, I think this is perfect for it. So I had to pick this one. Either for the first prompt or for this one, it didn't really matter either way. I think it works better for this one because I do like the Glam Shop one better for like representing me as a whole because of just like how beautiful those shimmers were. Okay, number 7 is if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents fun, I could pick the Delicious Delights from Cosmic Beauty just because it's like very fun, bright, and colorful. But I picked something else just because it's fun and bright and colorful. I'm gonna go with the Gloss Gods What's Your Power. I know I got like quite sick of this because it was in my project level up for a long time, but this is really, really fun. And actually I'm wearing a lot of these shades on my look today. And I just thought, you know what, it's kind of fun. We're being fun today. So I think this is fun. I don't think you can go into this palette and be miserable. I think this represents fun. It's bright. You're gonna have a nice fun time. Maybe you're going to, like, I don't know, a festival and you want to have some bright, colorful makeup. Who knows? But I think this kind of represents fun. So yeah, I went with this one. I don't really have any more to say about that. My version of fun would be bright and airy. Other people's version of fun might be dark and grungy or just completely different. Just obviously my preference this. And then the last prompt is if I could pick an eyeshadow palette in my collection that represents inspiration. This was pretty hard. I don't think this palette represents inspiration at all, but I think when I go into it, I'm very inspired. Like I've done 5 looks, 1 palette with this palette, and that was posted for my channel members. It is the Cosmic Beauty Serenity palette. Now this one, when you typically look at it, it is quite a, I don't know, does it invoke inspiration to most people? Maybe not. Mine is so battered. It looks terrible, mine, but when I look at this palette, I'm so inspired. Like I'm looking at this lime green and this purple and I'm thinking Halloween. I'm thinking like you could do so much stuff with this. And I have done already a bunch of looks, and there's so many other looks that I could still do in this palette because it is quite versatile. I really do like when palettes are versatile. There were a few other palettes in my collection that I could have picked for this prompt just because when something is versatile, I just feel so inspired. Other times when a palette is too monochromatic or has too many of the same shades, or the layout is too simple or, you know, making sense, I guess. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how to use that. Or I get bored. But when it's like scattered all over the place, like when you look at this, you're like, well, that's very blue. That's very green. It has a few pops, but is it really that special? It really is. I think this palette is quite special. And it is very surprising to me too, because when you think about me, when I think about me, I don't know if you think about me. When I think about me, I don't think of these colors necessarily, but when I go into this palette, I'm very, very inspired. I was almost going to pick the Lethal Cosmetics Air palette, but it's only 9 shades. And I thought, you know, I feel very inspired when I go into that palette because I do think it's pretty special, but it is only 9 shades. And at the end of the day, there is more of a limit as to what type of looks I can do with that palette as opposed to the Serenity. So I thought that one really kind of invoked a lot of inspiration when I go into it. So that's how I viewed the prompt. Anyway, that is the end of the video. Those are all the questions. Go check out the other girls. I have their channels linked in my description if you want to see what they picked, but I love this tag. Hope other people do it too. I thought it was really cool, and a different one that I hadn't seen before, which was always fun to do. Anyway, hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.